Welcome to the Resolution Room, a space for reflection and meaningful dialogue. I'm Dr. Nashay Lowe. My work sits at the intersection of leadership, communication, and conflict transformation, helping people see challenge as a teacher, not a threat. Each episode invites you to look closer, think deeper, and lead with greater intention. Because resolution isn't the absence of difficulty, it's learning to move through it on purpose. Let's get into it. What if the key to better leadership, deeper connection, and lasting influence wasn't about being the loudest person in the room, but the clearest? In this episode, I am joined by international speaker and leadership communication coach, Amos Balongo, for a compelling conversation about the power of intentional communication. From coaching C-suite executives to launching ukulele orchestras for youth in Kenya, Amos shares how communication can transform careers, communities, and personal confidence. Together, we explore how mastering your message can open new doors, not just professionally, but purposefully. Right, Amos, can you please introduce yourself?
Aloha, my name is Amos Balongo, and I am keynote speaker, leadership communication coach. What I do is really simple. I manufacture leaders who can effectively communicate to get the message across in a clear and precise manner.
Amazing. And I'd like to mention we had the pleasure of doing this in person in Nashville because you're here to speak tonight, right?
Yes, I'm actually speaking at an event in Nashville, and I'm so glad it worked out that we were able to connect and meet in person. So nice to meet you.
I know. This is so much better. I'm really glad this happened this way.
Wonderful.
So let's start off with telling me about how you discovered communication as a leadership tool.
Well, when I first started out in leadership and communication, I really hadn't paid attention to. I was focusing more on the leading people aspect, but I really hadn't honed in on what makes a great leader. And as I began to look at some of the greatest leaders in the world, I realized that what differentiated them from others is just their ability to communicate. And it's not about the complexity of the communication, is an impact of how they communicate. That's how I realized that you can be a great leader, but if you cannot communicate, you cannot get your message across, all you're doing is running around in circles. As long as people cannot receive your message, then your leadership is what I call stalled leadership.
Interesting. And I often think about the differences between like good management and leadership. And what happens a lot of times that people like naturally get promoted up and they don't receive proper leadership skills training. Do you find that a lot of leaders actually get any communication skills training as they move up, or is that something that's just more innate in people? Or
I think that a lot of times we're coming from the days of management systems, right? It's like, I want to be a better manager. And so we focus so much on the processes and the systems and not the people. And if you're going to be a good communicator, you have to focus on the people because you're communicating mostly to people and systems. And I believe that this is something that is really, really overlooked and yet so important in leadership, because I think at the heart or the core of leadership is just your ability to effectively communicate and connect. And, many people leaders mistake communication for just getting the word out. Well, you know what? I communicated. Well, I sent out an email. I put out a memo. I did whatever I communicated. Well, you really didn't communicate unless it is received, unless people actually take it and act on it. So that's how you complete that cycle. Yeah, so communication has to come with connection to make it complete.
I love that. Can you think of a time or share a moment when a shift in communication completely changed an outcome in something that you were consulting with?
Oh, yeah. I remember back in the days when I started communicating, working as a leadership consultant, I was sitting in a tough meeting with a client. And in this tough meeting, some tough decisions had to be made. And of course, sitting in a room with 10 people, some decisions that, will significantly change the direction of the organization. And then a lot of people in the room didn't really like the direction things were going. But and the mood, you can imagine, was pretty, no, it's not a good mood in the room. But at the end, the leader said something that shifted the mood completely. And he basically said, what do I need to do right now to be able to support you through this process? And that shifted. And those simple words.
Offering support.
Yeah.
Right. So you've worked with everyone from military generals to corporate leaders. What traits do, again, great communicators share across industries, sectors, etc.?
Communication is something that you never become perfect at. Just like when I meet somebody, they tell me, I'm a great leader. I have all my leadership skills. I know how to lead. They have just exposed to me the biggest blind spot, and that is inability to be teachable. Because in communication, you're constantly learning. It's ever evolving. This baby changes every day. And so the way we communicate back in the 60s is not the way we communicate in this day and age. So one of the greatest really attributes to some of the leaders I've worked with is being teachable, saying that I know what I know now, but there's still so much out there that I could learn. And humility. If you're not humble, there is no way you'll be teachable. So those two kind of intertwine together. And those two skills are just amazing.
Absolutely.
When you have them together.
I love that because I don't think a lot of people would think about humility in relation to how you communicate. I like that. And so you're a public speaker. So how do you coach other people who have like that? Everyone has like that fear of speaking, right? Myself included. When people have that, how do you coach them?
You know, they say many people fear public speaking more than death. And, you know, when you really look at it, there's some people who would rather be in the casket than be delivering the eulogy.
That's funny.
And I look at it this way. I mean, of course, it's intimidating. You're standing in a room, and if there's 100 people in the room, that's 200 sets of eyes looking at you. That's a lot of pressure and intimidation for a lot of people. So I always coach people towards number one, you have to frame your message. You have to know what is it you want to talk about. Because when you know what you want to talk about and it is clear, you framed it, this is what I want to talk about, and then you've created clarity with it. And then really talk about things you care about and you're passionate about. Because if you're not passionate about something, the audience is going to feel it. They're going to know that you're just talking. It's not coming from within you. And then lead through, but it's got to be, you've got to frame your message. You have to make sure it's clear. And clarity means making sure that your audience, and I assume you know your audience before you actually speak, that you can connect with them. And there's different ways to connect with audiences. If I'm speaking to a fourth grade class, there's a very different way I'm going to connect with them than a team of executives. So you have to understand, who are you talking to? It's just like if you went to a foreign country and they didn't speak English, you could talk to them in English all day long. They just won't get it. So you're not even communicating. You're just way out of part of the park when it comes to your message landing. So once you understand that, then you lead through it. But the fear is there. And I always tell people, can I coach you not to be afraid of public speaking? No, but I can help you frame your message, get clarity with it, and be able to deliver it. And what if I'm scared? Well, you know what I say? Do it scared. Because I speak to, and I get scared and I just do it. Do it scared, do it unprepared, but just do it. Because the more you do it, the easier it becomes.
I think we chatted a little bit about this beforehand, about the assumption that even when you do like things like podcasts, the assumption is that you must love to talk or you must, it must be easy.
Yeah.
It is an ongoing fear, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And many people don't see the behind the scenes, when you look at a keynote speaker standing up there speaking 45 minutes, it takes weeks, sometimes months to prepare that 45-minute talk. And behind the scenes, there's a lot. There's a lot of preparation. There's a lot of falling apart and picking yourself back up together. But you just have to do it. And
tell me about shifting a little bit. What inspired your work with youth through Camp Ohana?
Well, Camp Ohana is, that's my pride and joy because it's really about giving back. And I believe that when you're blessed, you have to give back. And my work with Camp Ohana started as an idea of how do we provide opportunities for children to learn, play, and grow, and mostly underserved children. And because at the at the heart of being a child is playing, and at the heart of playing is learning and growing. And if we don't have those opportunities to be kids, we miss a very important aspect of development, very young age. So we wanted to go to these underserved communities and just create opportunities for children to play, learn, and grow. And that's where my passion came, giving back to communities and underserved children who normally would never have an instrument to play, never have a soccer ball, never have books to read, and do that, transform lives.
Did you always want to do this, or it kind of just the opportunity presented itself?
I think this opportunity presented itself. I've always been passionate about young people. And so when the opportunity presented itself to do this, what lined everything up was a team, because Camp Ohana Foundation is a volunteer-run organization. And when I started working, putting together the team, I realized we have very many like-minded people who want to make a difference, but they don't know where to start and how to do it. And sometimes we compare ourselves to these big organizations doing some amazing things, and we're like, oh, we're so small, we can't even do what they're doing. But getting everybody to be on board and saying, we're going to do the least that we can. We're going to start with the things we do daily, and we're going to grow that way. And when you look at it, it's what we started doing daily almost 17 years ago has become a movement in terms of the impact made. Another thing is, many people focus on numbers like, oh, we serve 5,000 kids and all these huge numbers. But my thought process is not on numbers of impact. It's if I impact one child, if I impact 5 children, it's better than just, having the numbers, but no impact. And it's through small numbers. And if you equip these children really well, they become ambassadors of what has happened. And 5 children properly equipped can turn into 5,000 children 10 years down the road.
I love that. That ties in or aligns very much with the direction I want to take my consulting to, is more in education and that type of youth programming.
Yeah.
Because it's so much easier to teach children healthy habits that they grow up doing naturally versus trying to get adults to unlearn all the unhealthy habits that they've been doing for the past 40 plus years. So I love that smart approach. And so can you tell me a little bit more about the Ukulele Orchestra or the...
So I just talked about how the things you do daily and they have an impact over the long run. And the ukulele is a Hawaiian instrument. And I remember being in a village in Kenya with some friends of mine who are aviators. And they are from Hawaii, and they had an ukulele. And it was a really beat up ukulele, but they gave it to the kids, and it was more of a toy. And when I moved to Hawaii, I bought an ukulele, but I just never played it. It stayed on the shelf. A lot of it is, again, my ability to be able to very effectively procrastinate. And so when I saw this instrument, I realized I have a really beautiful instrument at home that I have never played. And I went back home and started playing the instrument, and it evoked just a thought in me that what if we really put some of these instruments in the hands of these children in Kenya and then taught them how to play these instruments? You can imagine the joy it would bring to them, because these are children who've never even seen an ukulele, let alone touched one. And so as I was thinking about it, I met a friend who connected me to one of the premier ukulele manufacturers in the world, really, and they're based in Hawaii. And through partnership, we were able to put ukuleles in the hands of, it was probably about 50 children in Kenya. Okay, now we've got the ukuleles out there. How do we get them to learn? Because it is an instrument that nobody plays out there. So I had to learn, and we used virtual means of teaching the children how to be able to learn the chords. And just through this simple act, these children went on to become the first ever children's ukulele orchestra in Africa. And up to today, they produce music. Their music is even in iTunes and Apple on Spotify. They continue to produce. And one of the things that I talk about is do it no matter what. And every week they produce a song and every week they post it on YouTube because it keeps them playing, it keeps them singing, it keeps them happy. So you could see what we've done, what we started by doing daily is just putting instruments in kids' hands, ended up being something that is now historic.
That is amazing.
Uh-huh.
Gosh, that's gotta feel good, right?
It does. It does. And just the act of self-satisfaction in serving others is, unless you've done it, you don't realize the power of it. And you asked about youth aviation. So how our youth aviation initiative came up was we wanted to put children here in America with skills and really tools that they can use in the STEM world. Now we were an organization that focused so much on the arts and kind of weak in the sciences. And so our initiative really came from how do we get young people to get into learning about aviation and what aviation is all about other than just flying aircraft. I happen to have coached and worked with a lot of aviators. As a result of that, I began to really learn what it is to be an aviator. And I realized that in aviation school, the students are taught how to fly aircraft. They're taught how to be good aviators, but they're not taught really leadership. And so I figured we can start a program where we get some successful aviators to be able to mentor these children and show them these are the different paths you can take in aviation. Not just flying a plane, you can work as an airport manager, you can work as an air traffic controller, you could be in finance, you could be marketing. The aviation space is huge. And with children, you have to have a practical way for them to, you want to have a hands-on experience. So for the younger kids, the hands-on experience is let's get out and be aviators at 400 feet and below. And that is using unmanned aerial aircraft, also known as drones. And they learn that not only can this aircraft fly around and take pictures, it's a powerful telemetric tool that can survey, that can map, that can do some amazing things if you understand the system. And then we pair them with programs and organizations that then help them, those who are interested in becoming pilots, so we lead them towards a private pilot or path. And so far, we have had the success in the program is we have had our middle schoolers win 2 national competitions in 2024, 2 middle school categories, put Hawaii on the map because Hawaii has never won any national competition. So actually, our middle schoolers and high schoolers competed and won that. And as a result of this initiative, we are now been approached to open a similar program in Australia.
Wow.
So
congratulations.
So yeah, when you give young people the opportunity to open their eyes to possibilities without limits, the sky is not even the limit.
No, okay. So what do you think that these initiatives teach the kids about communication and empowerment?
I think that at the core of what we do is leadership, and the children learn how to work as a team. You can be a very good engineer, you can be a very good doctor, you can be a very good pilot, but if you do not know how to work with a team, that impedes your ability to be an effective and successful at your trade. And we're living in a day and age where your ability to influence others can either make or break you in the workplace. And the only way you influence others is their ability to be able to communicate with them and add value. So at the core of everything we do is that we want to teach you to be a great leader and how to communicate. And because our program is global, we're teaching you how to communicate with young people from all over the world, from Australia, from Kenya, from the Netherlands, and everywhere else we have chapters, because gone are the days where we can stay in our little box and say, oh, we're just out here in Hawaii, the whole world doesn't really matter. But I think COVID changed that, where it taught us that we're all interconnected. And the more we know about each other, the more we learn about each other, the better and the safer the world in the future.
And that kind of built my next question then. So why is it important to give young people platforms to share their voice early on?
There's no other way to learn other than being allowed the opportunity. your younger years are very formidable years. And what you learn when you're younger becomes foundational. A lot of times we make the mistake of saying, hey, we're going to teach them when they're a little bit older. But we're forgetting that going back to science, when you plant a tree, it's got to have those roots have to really go down in the soil and stabilize. That's foundational before it starts shooting up. So when you get a young person in their teens and begin to expose them to things like this, having their voice heard, it's much more of an uphill battle versus when they're younger because you're getting it at a foundational level. So that's why I believe it's so important to expose children. You're never too young. You're never too young to learn. And I look at us as adults and as shepherds of these young people. Either you're going to be a river or reservoir to these kids. The reservoir, you're going to be holding all the water. If you're a river, it's going to flow through you. We have to let the knowledge flow through these kids.
Getting back to your work with organizations, what do organizations often get wrong about communication at a systems level?
I think many organizations, what they get wrong on communication is it's the telling versus asking. When we're building it at a system level, we're asking people to join us and become a part of our culture. And if the models are not designed like that and they're designed to tell people what to do, but nobody wants to be told what to do. People want to be invited and asked, do you want to be a part of what we're doing? And that's why when you bring in people into the organization, you're bringing them into your culture. And you have to ask them to want to be in it. And they either say yes or they say no. But if you have a culture of telling, you've already got it wrong from the systems level, because you can only tell people so much before you lose effectiveness.
So how do you think that leaders can shift from reactive communication to intentional values-driven dialogue?
Okay. This reminds me of a boss I had once who taught me something. Said, as a leader, your reactions to anything, they're felt across, team. So one of the things as leaders we need to do is we don't need to be reactive. When something happens, we have to let it sit. Let it sit and make sure you have the clarity I talk about before you engage. So to answer your question, you can always tell an organization where the leaders are very reactive versus the leaders take time to really look at particular situations, let them sink, because when the mud sinks to the bottom, you see clearly. And when you see clearly, you can then be able to really lead well. So 72 hours makes a big difference versus I reacted to something 15 minutes ago. And then how do you think through the impacts of what my decisions are going to be across the whole organization? Because one decision has a ripple effect. Have you thought through how it affects everybody from the bottom to the top?
I find that a lot of leaders feel this sense of urgency to respond to things, which I guess depending on the organization or the institution could vary. So I guess how do you coach them through maybe even kind of triaging through issues as they come up, because everything I think in that corporate world feels like I had to answer right now. I had to answer yesterday.
Yeah. Well, you have a framework of what's important, what's urgent, what's not, and then also what shapes the core and the foundation of our organization. Because when you have all those pillars, these things are going to come at you every single day, and you've got to figure out what pillar do I put this in? And then based on that, you come up with a response or a reaction. But if it's something that's foundational, that's going to shape the core of your business or your organization, you never want to rush that, because a good decision is one that has been thought through, that also has, you've involved some stakeholders and there is some common ground in that decision and how you forward. Now, of course, there's all these little operational issues that come up that urgent, not urgent, and that can be responded to right away. But I'm talking about the core things that can affect an organization's future for years to come.
Right. So how can you tell when an organization is actively listening rather than just performing listening?
You can. It's pretty simple. You can tell from the from the employees, of the people. There's these organizations where at 4:50 and quitting time is 5 o'clock, everybody's got their bags on their desks ready to go. They are just ready to go. By 5:03, the parking lot is empty. So putting it in a way that I think the viewers can understand, that's how I would tell. I look at your parking lot and I look at your organization at 10 minutes to 5, if 5 o'clock is quitting time. And the organizations where people go the extra mile are those that the employees feel like they have a stake in the organization and in the leadership, and they're included in it.
So I like to ask at the end the sort of signature resolution question, since this is the resolution room. So what does resolution look like for you, not just in conflict, but in the way you lead, live, and communicate?
I think resolution for me means, finding common ground. When you're leading people, there's a very big difference to leading and managing. When you're leading people, people are following you because they want, to follow you. They see something in you that they aspire to be. And are you living out how you're leading? Because everybody deserves to be led well. It doesn't matter who they are. And when you're in a position of leadership, you owe it to yourself and to others to really lead well. By doing that, you have to be equipping yourself. So am I leading people or am I managing people? Are my people feeling empowered or are they feeling managed? And that for me comes down to the common ground I talked about. Are we leading? Am I leading with consensus? If I'm not leading with consensus, well, I'm just taking a walk. And everybody's following me because they have no choice.
Well, I want to thank you so much for chatting with me today. Before I let you go, can you let everyone know where to follow you and your work?
You can follow me at amosbalongo.com. And my social media handles are my name, Amos Balongo, on Instagram and Facebook, as well as YouTube.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
What Amos reminds us is that communication isn't about performance, it's about presence. It's not how loudly we speak, but how deeply our words align with what we believe. In every room, whether it's a board meeting, a classroom, or a family table, our message becomes our mirror. It reveals what we value, how we listen, and whether we lead with ego or with empathy. Because mastering your message isn't about controlling the narrative. It's about creating connection through clarity, through courage, and through care. And when we communicate from that place, we don't just change minds, we change what's possible. Thank you for joining me in the Resolution Room. If today's conversation gave you something to think about, please consider sharing it with someone else who might need to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the show. It really helps more people find these conversations. You can explore our wearable wisdom collection at the Mind Shop or visit lowinsights.com to learn more about our work and upcoming projects. All of the details are in the show notes below. And until next time, keep building in the quiet because that's what will carry you forward.